Well, howdy YouTube, Unky Joe here, Unky Joe's Playhouse. It is now officially the month of July at Unky Joe's Playhouse, so time for a hat change. Thank you, Willie Howe. A shout out for that generous donation of that hat over a year ago. I wore it for the entire month of June in your honor. But now on to other things. Other things like 10 gig networking. Yes, I have finally taken the plunge. It's been 5 months since I announced my 10 gig networking infrastructure changeover thingy, whatever, here at Unky Joe's Playhouse. And today I'm actually putting it in on my workstation and between my main servers. So come on along for the ride. Let's see what kind of test results we get. I think that'd be very interesting, don't you? Okay, come on. Now the topic of this video today is 10 gig networking. I bought these components months ago. As you know, I've been slow rolling my 10 gig internet or Ethernet out to my studio here in my office, and today we're going to upgrade my workstation to 10 gig. I don't want to run the fiber outside. In other words, I don't want to drill a hole, bring it up through the floor, bring it in through the wall or anything like that. I just want to do a straight run from my switch to my PC. And we're not talking about very far. We're talking about maybe 25 feet combined. So I should have a long enough cable. I think it's a 15-meter cable. Should be plenty long enough. I've got the transceivers and I've got my network card here. And then if we come over to the rack, Sasha, thanks again, man. This wouldn't be possible without you, Sasha. Sasha sent us graciously sent us a 10 gig switch. So that's what we'll be using to plug into. The problem is, though, I don't want to go down underneath the house and all that. So what I'm going to do is I've got these neat little clips that'll hold cables, and I'm just going to come up here. I'm probably going to come over the top of my wall here. And yeah, that'll be repaired someday. And then down the side here. And then ultimately what I'm going to do is find a new home for this printer. I don't like this printer here. I hardly ever use this printer, but I'm too cheap to get rid of it, and I don't want to spend the money on another printer, so I'm stuck with it. But I got to find another home for it, a better location, because this really kind of blocks the flow in front of this window, and I don't want that to happen either. So over the window, into the rack, that's what we're going to do today. And hopefully I'll get some shots of me installing this. Alright, so let's see how that turned out. As you can see, I've got the fiber transceiver. It's an SFP Plus to dual fiber connection. I forget what they call it, but I'll look it up for you. And then I've got the remainder of the cable looped up there. So this is the fiber optic link going to my workstation, and then it just comes up the wall. Put some grippers on it, comes up the wall out here. Comes across the wall. Just love my camera skills. I'm trying not to fall over as I film it. Comes up the top of the window and down the side here. It's all pinned up right alongside the window, and then it goes down to my PC down on the floor by my desk. So yeah, got it hooked up, and I want you to pay special close attention to that Dell right there, the one that says MSHV2. The label on that is going to be changed, and there's a reason. Because as I'm playing around with 10 gig, I was curious about Synology and 10 gig, and the problem is that my little Synology NAS, I cannot put a 10 gig networking card in that thing. Nor, well, I could put one in Hermes. But you know, Hermes is dedicated. It's running Xphonology, which is basically the hack that allows you to run Synology software on your own hardware. It's working fine, but I don't want to mess with it. So you'll see why the Dell is going to come into play here shortly. So anyway, got the 10 gig hooked up. I got 10 gig goodness going all the way to my PC. Now all of my servers down here in the lower part of the rack, all of the Dells and the IBMs have 10 gig networking cards in them. The XCP&G unit right here does not have a 10 gig networking card, but that'll be changing. All right, so if we look at this screen right here, this is my network property screens, and you'll see that I do now have the Mellanox Connect X2 Ethernet adapter installed in my machine. And we are transmitting and receiving at 10 gigabits per second. Now, the other Ethernet card I have is just simply disabled right here. And you can see it is disconnected. So there's my 1 gig Realtek network card. And there's my Mellanox. So this is on my actual workstation that I'm on right now. So let's go see something else here. All right, so there's my workstation. Now, as you know, Sasha has loaned us that FS 1018 right there. We got that thing chock full of SSD drives, and we have a 10 gig, as you can see the yellow cables stringing along there. We have a 10 gig Ethernet cable running under my dog. She is protecting my 10 gigabit goodness. She's making sure it doesn't, fly up off the floor and fling around. Oh, that's a hose that does that when you, yeah, never mind. Anyway, she's protecting the 10 gig. So there's that unit. Now, where else do I have 10 gig connected? Well, I have 10 gig here on my workstation. But I need a source that is running at 10 gig to be doing transfers of data between another 10 gig unit and my workstation to actually see if the speeds are going to hold up. So, what else do I have running 10 gig? I don't know. Let's go look. So, everybody remembers my Dells, right? So, I've got that one Dell over there that has got 3.5-inch hard drives in it, 6 of them. And they're all 2 terabyte drives. So what I decided to do for the sake of this test, I've been playing around with Exponology again. As you can see right now, I've got ESXi 6.7 installed on that Dell. And I got lots of RAM available and whatnot. But you'll also notice that I have right here, if I can get my mouse to cooperate, I have an Exponology NAS running. The 3615XS is running. Now, pay attention to a couple things. So it's got 2 virtual CPUs right here, 4 gig of RAM. This is the boot drive. This is the operating system drive. And then what I've done is I've passed through 2 items through PCI pass-through. One of those items is my Mellanox 10 gig networking adapter. I just passed it through. The other one is my Dell 6 gig SAS HBA adapter that has been flashed into IT mode. So, what I have done is created an Exponology virtual machine that is running and has direct access to the Mellanox and to the SAS adapter. And then let's go over and take a look at the Exponology NAS right now. Alright, so we're on our Exponology NAS now. Now, if you look here, you will see it's working well. If I come up, bring up Storage Manager, you'll see that I do have all 6 of those hard drives passed through. There's a Seagate, there's the 2 white label 2 terabytes, and then 3 more Seagate drives, all in a SHR Synology hybrid RAID with protection of 1 drive fault tolerance. So I have a total capacity of 8.7 terabytes. I've used up about 66 gig of it, and I have 8.65 available. So you'll also see that LAN 2 is my 10 gig Mellanox adapter. It just passes it through with ESXi. That's why I'm using ESXi on this Dell, so I can make this happen. The problem is I don't have a 10 gig network adapter in my DS918. I can't put one in there. And my machine Hermes, which is also running Exponology, is serving the home audio video needs, and I don't want to interrupt that and put a 10 gig network card in it. So what I did was, since I already have that in the Dell, I spun up this instance of a virtual machine, virtual Exponology, just to show you it can be done and the kind of speed you're going to get with it. So I don't know that y'all have seen this Aja system test, but I ran across it with another YouTuber using it to do some testing. And so I decided I wanted to use it to do some testing. Now, the only problem with something like Aja is it really, benchmarking programs, do they really give a true speed test on devices. So what we're going to do is, I just want you to see the settings I'm going to use. We're using a resolution of 1080p, a 1 gig test file size, 10-bit YUV codec, and then I'm going to test my spinning hard drive in my workstation, and then I'm going to test my SSD hard drive in my system. And then we're going to go out and we're going to test a couple of share locations, one on the FS 1018, and remember I have a RAID 0 array in there and I have a RAID F1, and then we will test against the Exponology NAS that has the 10 gig network card in it and an SHR array. So the first thing we want to do is use the spinning hard drive in my computer. So I have a 1 terabyte drive out here, and that's the one we're going to test. And what I'm going to do is just click on the start button. I've told it to run continuously, and then we'll just make some observations. Now, what's going to skew these test results are the fact that I'm also running OBS on this system. And I am recording to the SSD that I'm going to be testing. So you're going to need to take my test results when I go to my SSD with a grain of salt. But you can see a standalone drive should get pretty close to 200 megabytes per second read and write speeds. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that test. Then the next test I'm going to run is against my SSD drive. So let's see if I can't find it. There it is, my D drive. And keep in mind, I have OBS running, so it may skew the results. Go ahead and click on Start, and you can see this is a SanDisk 1 terabyte drive in here, the SanDisk Ultra 2. So, 400 meg read and write speeds are about what I'm getting on this disk. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop OBS for a second from recording, and then I'm going to do these tests again, and I'll show you the results. All right, so here are the speed tests without OBS running, and not a big change, maybe 30 or 40 megabytes per second more. So that'll give you an idea of a benchmark of the kind of speeds you should see. Now, I could have set up a RAM disk to test this, but I want to test this on real-world hardware. I don't want to do these like synthetic what-if benchmarks. And really, I'm not even interested in the benchmarking. I just want to see for myself with my own eyes what kind of speeds I'm getting on my 10 gig network. All right, so now I have my ducks in a row. So now you'll see that I've mounted the RAID 0 and the FS 1018 as drive J, the RAID F1 share as drive K, and then down here a little further, you'll see one called Test. Test is my Exponology NAS running on the Dell. So let's begin with the FS 1018 RAID 0 share. And keep in mind, we're keeping all the testing parameters the same. Let's see what kind of speeds we get on here. Boom. Okay, so we're getting 900 write and 400 and, well, let's just see 500 read and 900 write. And again, these are synthetic tests, so I don't know how true they are, how much you can keep them in mind. I do see the activity lights going off on the FS 1018. So this is the test result for the target drive, the RAID 0 array, so keep those numbers in mind. Let's go ahead and stop it. We're going to go to the RAID F1. Y'all saw me select that, right? Yeah. Boom. RAID F1 share on drive letter K. Same settings as the other. Let's click on Start. And you'll see we're getting fairly similar results, actually a little bit lower. So that RAID 0 is just a tad bit faster than the RAID F1. Yeah, and I see the activity lights going off on the RAID F1 array. So there's those. Now, let's do it to the Synology Hybrid RAID. And let's see what kind of results we get. And I'm doing this for the first time with y'all coming right along. So test drive Y is my Synology Hybrid RAID. So let's click on Start. And that's about more of what I was thinking I was going to see with the Synology Hybrid RAID. So still not bad at all compared to the, you remember our local 1 terabyte spinning hard drive was only able to muster about 100 to 120 megabyte, or I'm sorry, up to 200 megabytes per second. And these speeds are almost double what we were getting with the local spinning hard drive. So, and I see the activity lights going off on my Exponology NAS. So let's now copy some real data back and forth and see what kind of speeds we're seeing on that. All right, so on the left-hand side is my internal SSD on my workstation. So let's go see if we can't find some files here. Let's go to my finished original. Let's do this one. Let's do the XCP stack video and see what kind of transfer speed I get. So let's drag that over and drop it, and 400. Start out strong, comes down to about 200. Yeah, 200 megabytes per second. So about as fast as copying to a spinning hard drive internally. Well, actually a little bit lower. It starts out strong, but ends kind of weak. All right. Let's actually copy a bunch of files. Let's just see what happens when I drag and drop 4 files over there. See what kind of speeds we get. Again, we start out strong, and then we like drop off the end of a cliff. Okay, they're all right. Nothing to write home about. Let's go ahead and try it with a different. Let's try it with the RAID F1. All right, so here we are on the RAID F1 on the FS 1018. So let's go ahead and copy this file over there, and we'll replace it. And we start off strong, and baby, we stay strong. That's cool. I like that. All right, let's grab a handful of files now and see how they do. Drag them over. Let's copy 5 files. And let's, oh yeah, she's writing. Look at that. Half of 10 gigabits, so I'm getting nearly 5 gigabits. We'll say 4. Not bad at all. Very impressed. So that's copying from my machine to the FS 1018. Not bad at all. All right, so this is the test folder on the Exponology NAS, the one that is running virtually under ESXi. Let's copy a single 4 gigabyte file over and see how it does. Oh, pretty good. Almost as good as, well, I'd say that's as good as the RAID F1 with SSD drives. That is phenomenal. Now let's grab 4 or 5 files. Let's grab these through these. Is that 5? Yeah, 5 files. Drag and drop. Let's see what they do. Let's see how they do. Wow. So, my copy speeds over to the FS 1018 on RAID F1 are about 400 megabytes per second. And that's onto SSD storage. The speeds copying onto my Exponology NAS on that old Dell with spinning Rust in a RAID SHR1 array with 6 drives is as fast as copying over to those SSDs. I never would have expected that if you told me that, but here we're seeing it with our own eyes, right? Right. Now, let's see how fast we can get data off of these drives and copy them back to my machine. So let's do that next. All right, so this is, again, over here on the left is my SSD drive, and I've just got a test folder under there. And on the right-hand side is my RAID 0 share on my FS 1018. So let's just copy 4 or 5 files over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do these 5 files. Let's just drag them over and drop them, and let's see what happens. So again, about 350. Let's see if it hits 400 megabytes per second or if it drops off here. Nope, looks like it's working just fine. See, I could sit here and do benchmark tests all day and probably amaze people. We'll do a crystal Dismark as well, because I'm just curious as to what crystal Dismark is going to come up with those 3 different drive shares, just for my own benefit. But we're getting pretty good read speeds, about 300 megabytes per second off of this RAID 0. And this is the beauty, folks, of setting up a lab environment. You can test these things for yourself because you can see benchmark after benchmark after benchmark and never get an idea what the real world results for yourself will be. So we can read about off that RAID 1 or RAID 0 about as fast as we write to it. A teensy bit slower. And there you go. All right, so now we're over on the RAID F1 share on the FS1018. And let's just copy, again, we'll grab 5 files and copy them over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And drag them over to test. I'm going to copy one more file. I'm going to just copy this really big one, Guardians of the Galaxy, over and just see consistently what kind of speed we get. All right, we're coming into the home stretch. So, look at those speeds. It's, it's almost triple what I'm getting on my gigabit network. So I'm quite happy with these results so far. Quite happy. You're seeing it for yourself. All right, so that's copy done. That copy is done. So let's see how fast I can get my data off of my spinning Rust array on my Exponology unit. All right, so on the right-hand side, you'll see this is my Exponology NAS Prometheus. And over on the left is my SSD drive. And I've gone ahead and deleted those files that I copied a little while ago and emptied the recycle bin just so there's no funny business going on. So I'm just going to grab 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these files and drop them over to my SSD. Uh-oh, hey, it's warning me. These files may be harmful. Uh-oh, I don't care. Let's copy them anyway. So we start out really strong, and we keep going really strong. And looky there, we're still going strong. And actually, we're getting a little bit stronger. So, you're seeing it with your own eyes, folks. We start out on that Synology Hybrid RAID at about 400 megabytes per second. Now we're coming back down to 300. So is that caching? I don't know. It's faster. It's faster by a smidge. Let's go ahead and do Guardians of the Galaxy. We'll just copy that over, and then we'll talk a little while it's copying. Same thing. Well, we start out almost at 500 megabytes per second. And it must be caching. It's got to be something to do with caching somewhere. You see that little blip. We had started really fast, and now it's down to about 300. So we're getting the same speeds out of a hacked Exponology using spinning Rust as we are using the FS Flash Station 1018. And we're gonna talk. Now I can hear people out there yelling, yeah, but. Look, these are my test results. They don't mean your test results are going to be the same. And there could be any number of explanations for why these speeds are what they are. But it just goes to prove a point for me. I can only report on what I see with my own eyes in my own lab settings. Now, after this test is done, we'll talk about what I haven't done on any of these units that might be an explanation for as to why we're seeing these speeds. But we'll let this copy finish. So there you go. We did the Aja test, which is kind of a, simulated benchmarks. We did the actual copy back and forth to an SSD drive on my machine, which has a 10 gig fiber connection in it back to my switch, and a 10 gig connection here on the floor. That, what finger do I want? That one, the little yellow wire. That's a 10 gig connection. And you saw the results I was getting copy speed. So I would say that was worth every penny I have spent on network adapters, time, cables, transceivers, that kind of thing. It's well worth every penny I spent, because I like to be able to get my data back and forth. The trick is going to be to get all of my servers running 10 gigabit, all my servers that have storage on them, getting them running 10 gig. That'll be the next goal. Now, what I'd like to do is run Crystal Dismark on here as well. I'm going to run against my local SSD drive, my local spinning drive. I'm going to run it against all three of those shares, the RAID 0, RAID F1, and the SHR RAID on my Exponology unit. But I'm going to do them and record the test results and let you see them, instead of having you sit here and watch every one of these tests go off. But let's talk about what I haven't done. I have simply put these Mellanox cards into my machine, to the server over there running ESXi, and I have not enabled jumbo frames on any of these network adapters, not at all. I've just left the MTUs what they were set at from the factory. Haven't tweaked them, haven't done anything. I'm using the native Windows 10 drivers that support that Mellanox card. I haven't changed any of the settings on the Synology Flash Station as far as MTUs go, and I haven't changed them on the Exponology NAS as well. So you're seeing these without me having tweaked the and gone and enabled jumbo packets, nor have I enabled jumbo packets on my switch either. So that'll be stuff, those will be changed in another video, because why make one when you can make two? But anyway, you see my point. I just wanted you to see what it was out of the box. I'm a neophyte when it comes to 10 gig networking. I really don't know what I'm doing any better than somebody else out there, and it's a testing process for me. So let's go out and see what kind of results we're going to get on Crystal Dismark. And through the magic of video editing and a little bit of time compression, we now have test results. So let me explain what you are looking at, and you can see I'm very impressed. I gotta tell you, I did not expect to see these results. This test right here, this first one, is my internal spinning 1 terabyte Seagate hard drive that's about 5 or 6 years old. So reads and writes are what we expected. 4K, abysmal. Sequential, it's okay. And the other 4K down here is abysmal, because it's spinning Rust, and the hard drive heads have to go back and forth to read and write data. So that's where SSDs really shine, because they are all on memory, right? So memory has much lower latency than a spinning drive platter and a head going across it. So the 4K reads and writes are going to be much better, and the overall throughput is, about 500 megabyte per second. And where the SSD also really shines is on the 4K. You can see my readings here. Now, where it gets interesting, this test right here is my Flash Station 1018. Well, not mine, it's Sasha's, but he's letting me borrow it, so it's mine for now. And you can see that this is an RAID F0. There's an RAID, it's an RAID 0 array, not an F0. Just a standard, just 2 SSD, 128 gig SSD drives in a RAID 0. Pretty darn good read and write speeds across, and this is across the network on top of that. So I couldn't do these tests before I got my 10 gig networking card in, so because they wouldn't have mattered, because I was limited by a 1 gigabit Ethernet connection. But as you can see, the read and write speeds are very acceptable. 4K sequential and 4K down at the bottom, almost as good as an internal SSD up in the upper right hand corner. And then where things get interesting, the middle test here is on the Synology Flash Station with 6 SSD drives and a RAID F1 array. And you can see the read speeds are excellent and the write speeds are phenomenal. And I guess this, this just goes to show you, man, Synology has really got their act together when it comes to that RAID F1. Those read and write times, the write times especially, are excellent. The 4K tests are very, very good. They're on par with a internal directly connected serially SSD drive. The sequential reads and writes are as good and better than an internal SSD. And the 4K is almost as good. Well, it's as good as the RAID 0 array. And then where it gets really interesting, people always say spinning Rust is slow. Yeah, but it ain't that slow, baby. I am impressed that this last test here is on my Exponology NAS running virtually under ESXi, with the SAS and the Mellanox 10 gig connector being passed through. And you can see my read and write speeds are on par, if not better, than, well, of course, my locally attached hard drive. But my read and write speeds are up there, but they're better than the RAID 0 array. They're on par with the RAID F1 array with SSD drives, except for the write speeds. That's to be expected. But where the SSDs pull away is in the 4K, and this the 4K here and the 4K there. We get pretty good. We get okay speeds. They're better than spinning Rust, my local hard drive. But as you can see, the SSDs, even in an array across the network, just perform so much better because they don't have that latency of the head having to move across the surface of the disk to find the data. The sequential reads and writes are excellent, very acceptable, better than a locally attached hard drive, and that's because you're combining the speed of all those 6 drives in that drive array. And then even the 4K is acceptable, the 4K reads and writes, because look, compare spinning Rust here to these here, and there's not much difference between them, and it's still much better than spinning Rust on locally attached hard drives. So any work I'm doing on my internal local hard drive would actually be better done on my array, on my Exponology NAS. So if I hadn't seen these test results with my own eyes, I never would have believed it. But there you go. You're seeing it for yourself. This is the internal spinning hard drive, internal SSD. This is the SSD in a RAID 0 on the Synology flash station. This is the 6 SSDs in RAID F1, which is a proprietary RAID to Synology. These are the read and write speeds on those SSDs. And then this is the spinning Rust in my Exponology / Synology NAS with 10 gig networking card and 6 internal 2 terabyte hard drives. So what does all this mean? Well, it means whether you're using spinning Rust or SSDs in an array with 10 gig networking, you're going to get phenomenal read and write speeds across your network compared to using a local direct attached spinning hard drive. And you get pretty damn close to SSD speeds even across the network, with the exception of the 4K sequentials. And that's to be expected. SSDs are just going to perform better than spinning Rust when it comes to that kind of random read-write activity. But if you can't afford SSDs, and if you can't afford a Synology flash station to put them into, but you can afford a Synology NAS with a 10 gig networking card in there, that would be money well spent, in my opinion. I know I feel really good about spending money on my Synology NAS, even though I can't put a 10 gig network card in there. I can run my Exponology NAS as a virtual machine under ESXi with a 10 gig networking card and get pretty darn good results, as you saw there, with your own eyes. So I hope you've enjoyed this, coming on this journey with me, this foray into 10 gig networking. You'll see I don't just jump on any bandwagon and do things quickly. I like to research and test, and frankly, I've been awful busy with work here lately. In fact, I've got a video coming up on that very subject, where I actually had to call in some outside help. And I went to my good buddy Willie Howe over at Howe Technology, and he helped me wrap my mind around a problem I was having with a client. So we got a day in the life of an IT guy coming up where I discuss that. So be on the lookout for that. But anyway, back to what I was saying. So I've slow rolled my 10 gig out, and I knew my workstation, I wanted that to be the first actual 10 gig workstation to connect up. But I had to see with my own eyes just how much faster 10 gig was. But I had to do it with being able to compare it to SSD speed, to spinning Rust speed, just to see in my own mind how that all worked. So again, gracious thanks out to Sasha for loading us this flash station so I could run these tests and experiments. Now, what'll be interesting to do is this is running everything over SMB 3, which the Synology does support, and it's built into Windows. Windows SMB 3. I've heard people poo-poo on SMB 3, but hey, you saw the test results. What I'd like to do next is set up an NFS store on both the flash station and my Synology NAS, and also an iSCSI share, and do some speed comparisons there. I don't think they're going to be any better or worse than the SMB speeds. Now your mileage might vary, but we'll do a test on that moving forward as well, because I've got some plans to do some iSCSI share with virtual machines on this flash station to show you how that works. And I've got the results of my running virtual machines on a Synology flash station and what my recommendations are on that. Well, we certainly hope you found this video entertaining and informative. I know I had a lot of fun making it. I was able to get off my big ass and go run some fiber cable, and let me tell you, every time I screwed down one of those connectors and the cable twisted a little bit, I was mighty scared because I'm old school when it comes to fiber. I'm always worried about twisting it in too small of a loop and breaking the fiber inside. So I was like, oh shit, I hope I didn't break my fiber. But I didn't, and it's working, as you can see, fine. So anyway, thanks again for coming to see us. Donate if you're so inclined. We take PayPal, we take Patreon, and your generous support helps keep this channel going. We couldn't do it without you. Subscribe, please. If you're not a subscriber, it does matter. Click the notification bell to be notified of new videos, and recommend us to anybody who you think might get some use out of these videos. And don't forget that we will see you on the other side.